They said, we want to send a man out to discuss this with you. They were holding the American prisoners in boats about 1,000 yards offshore. And they said, we want to send a man by the name of Francis Scott Key. He will come out and negotiate to see if we can make a mutual exchange. On the appointed day, in a rowboat, he went out to this boat and he negotiated with the British officials. And they reached a conclusion that men could be exchanged on a one-for-one basis. Francis Scott Key, jubilant with the fact that he'd been successful, went down below in the boats, and what he found was a cargo hold full of humanity, men. And he said, men, I've got news for you tonight. You're free. He said, tonight I have negotiated successfully your return to the colonies. He said, you'll be taken out of this boat, out of this filth, out of your chains. As he went back up on board to arrange for their passage to the shore, the admiral came and he said, we have a slight problem. He said, we will still honor our commitment to release these men, but it'll be merely academic after tonight. It won't matter. And Francis Scott Key said, what do you mean? He said, well, Mr. Key, he said, tonight we have laid an ultimatum upon the colonies. Your people will either capitulate and lay the colors of that flag that you think so much of, or you see that fort right over there, Fort Henry? He said, we're going to remove it from the face of the earth. He said, how are you going to do that? He said, if you will, scan the horizon of the sea. And as he looked, he could see hundreds of little dots. And he said, that's the entire British war fleet. He said, all of the gunpowder, all the armament is being called upon to demolish that fort. It will be here within striking distance in a matter of about 2.5 hours. He said, the war is over. These men would be free anyway. He said, you can't shell that fort. He said, that's a large fort. He said, it's full of women and children. He says, it's predominantly not a military fort. He said, don't worry. They said, we've left them a way out. And he said, what's that? He said, do you see that flag way up on the rampart? He said, we have told them that if they will lower that flag, shelling will stop immediately. And we'll know that they've surrendered, and you'll now be under British rule. Francis Scott Key went down below and told the men what was about to happen. And they said, how many ships? He said, hundreds. The ships got closer. Francis Scott Key went back up on top and he said, men, I'll shout down to you what's going on as we watch. As twilight began to fall, and as the haze hung over the ocean as it does at sunset, suddenly the British war fleet unleashed. He says the sound was deafening. There were so many guns that there were no reliefs. He said it was absolutely impossible to talk or hear. He said suddenly the sky, although dark, was suddenly lit. And he says from down below, all he could hear the men, the prisoners, saying was, tell us where the flag is. What have they done with the flag? Is the flag still flying over the rampart? Tell us. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours into the shelling, every time the bomb would explode and it would be close to the flag, they could see the flag in the illuminated air of that bomb, and Francis Scott Key would report down to the men below, it's still up. It's not down. The admiral came, people are insane. He said, what's the matter with them? He said, don't they understand this is an impossible situation? Francis, he remembered what George Washington had said. He said, the thing that sets the American Christian apart from all other people in the world is he will die on his feet before he'll live on his knees. The admiral said, we have now instructed all of the guns to focus on the rampart to take that flag down. He said, we don't understand something. Our reconnaissance tells us that that flag has been directly again and again and again, and yet it's still flying. We don't understand that. But he said, now we're about to bring every gun for the next 3 hours to bear on that point. Francis Scott Key said the barrage was unmoved. All that he could hear was the men down below praying. The prayer, God, keep that flag flying where we last saw it. Sunrise. He said there was a heavy mist hanging over the land, but the rampart was tall enough. There stood the flag, completely nondescript, in shreds. The flagpole itself was at an angle, but the flag was still at the top. Francis Scott Key went aboard and immediately went into Fort Henry to see what had happened. And what he'd found had happened was that that flagpole and that flag had suffered repetitious direct hits. And when it had fallen, but men, others, who knew what it meant for that flag to be on the ground, although knowing that all of the British guns were trained on it, walked over and held it up humanly until they died. Their bodies were removed and others took their place. Francis Scott Key said what had flagpole in place at that unusual angle were patriots' bodies. He penned the song, "Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming? Or the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave through the night that the flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet fly and wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? The debt was demanded, the price it was paid."
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets spread clear, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
the Armed Forces. And representing the Air Force, we're going to ask Patty Yarborough to come forward. She's on her way. Representing the Army is Jake Anthony. Representing the Coast Guard, Nita Whitman. Bet you didn't even know we had a Coast Guarder here. Representing the Marines, Harold Weaver. And representing the Navy, Bill Farmer. I might add that the question came up, should they wear the uniforms? And a couple of us quickly surmised that that won't work for most of us. And at this time, we'd like to basically supposed to have that over here ready. Okay. I'd like to read the inscription for this plaque that we'll present to them as an honor to all the veterans here. And I'm going to read each name on the plaque as well. But I want to read the inscription simply says, honoring our members who have served. Veterans Day, November 10th, 2013, Choctaw Church of Christ. And as we read each name, I would like for you to stand. And we surely want to know if we left someone out. If there's someone here alive and breathing that served in the military and we don't call your name, we want to know about it. We want you to stand at the end when I ask that. First, just going alphabetically, Bob Aldrich. Jake Anthony's on the stage. Marion Ashford. Joe Bailey. Pete Beller. Clint Bennett. James Bentley. Rex Dethridge, who has been suffering illness and age here lately. Tommy Dethridge. John Dillinger. Charles Eckert. Bill Farmer on the stage. Danny Fox. Kevin Green. Roy Harris. Johnny Henderson on stage. Stephen Howes. Marty Kessler. James Krywanek. Steve Krywanek. Alan Maxwell. Jim McCrae. By the way, Alan, I think, is out there with the Bible Time. Okay. Jim McCrae, who's really struggling with health right now. Boyd Mize. I know I saw that guy. There he is. James Poindexter. We know him as Jim. Dave Roberts. Gary Shires. Lloyd Smith. Gary Swimiller. Terry Swimiller. Larry Tabor. Billy Van Kuren. Calvin Vernon. Brian Wheel. Harold Weaver on stage. Nita Whitman's on stage. John Wright. Patty Yarborough is on stage, and we already know one who was left off the plaque, Frank Walters. And please, if you're here and we failed to get your name on the plaque, please stand at this time and let us recognize you. Jim Brandon, and there's obviously we have a little work to do. And Sean, who's not here, Mossam. Okay, so I think I saw 6 or 8 people that just stood up. So we want to make sure we get your names, and they will indeed be added to this plaque. Whatever has to be done, we'll take care of that, okay? We do want to honor your service. And I know we appreciate, I know they're not, today's Veterans Day, but I know also that we have several members here, some that are firefighters that have served, some that, it's funny how those guys find some other way to serve, We have policemen that have both served in the military and now kind of work to maintain our safety as well. And for every one of these veterans that we see standing, we know people stood behind them. We know their families made sacrifices. We know certainly their spouses, their parents made all kinds of sacrifices in their service, and we appreciate them as well. At this time, and would you join me with a round of applause for all those that are standing? Thank you. At this time, we want to, and we'll kind of pose for a picture if you don't mind. We'll present this plaque to the ones on stage representing those 5 branches of service, and get a picture of that at the same time. Okay, join in here. All these folks. All these folks. Okay. I want you to hold that up there. There you go. We're almost finished, and we'll be led in a closing prayer by Bob Aldridge in just a moment. But we have one comment from Bill, one of our World War II veterans, and I can't say no to that. Okay? Yeah.
Well, there was 5 battleships sank at Pearl Harbor. One of them was the Oklahoma, the West Virginia, California, New Mexico, and the Nevada. About 700 of the crew members of the Nevada sank with the ship. They turned it into a beautiful shrine. If you're ever out in Hawaii, you go see it. The 3 battleships came back to Bremerton, Washington, was refitted and went back to the war. But the good old Oklahoma was different. They were towing it back, and about halfway between California and Hawaii, it broke the towing line and it went to the bottom of the ocean and fight no more.
Would you bow with me, please? Father in heaven, we are so blessed here at Choctaw and across the nation for people who are willing to put their lives on the line for this country. Father, help us to not only honor these people, but for all those who live to serve you. And Father, that's what this nation was founded upon, was a nation to serve you. And I'm sure that that's why most of these men were willing to put their lives on the line. Father, please bless the veterans and all those that stood beside them. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Stick around for just a picture.
I want all the veterans up here on stage, whether your name was on the plaque or not, for a group photo.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. They just want to get another picture. Oh, they want